Hi, this is Felix in Ecuador. I have a friend who is the new caribou, the Honorable Sir David, Emperor of Salt Lake City, Sultan of Utah, spiritual advisor to questioning Mormons, the Bard, extraordinaire, supreme being, Alpha and Omega. I told you, Alpha is off today, and Omega, the damn guy, I fired him. Fired Omega. He put the fan up against the table, and the microphone picked up the sound of the vibration on my last video. So hopefully this video is more clear and my mind is more clear. I had a comment that came in, and I don't know. There's things that you people say that just get me going. You're just teasing a mentally ill man. This is like being in a mental institution and you're sitting in the main foyer living room, and some people are going like this, some people are doing this, some people just stand there, some blah, 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 blah. You know, you guys just tease the shit out of me. You do. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an attorney. Do not send me money. I don't represent anybody. If you're in trouble, hire an attorney. Hire an attorney, and don't even listen to me. That's my advice. One of the people wrote in and said I should do a video on contract law. Now, I went to law school just long enough to get into deep trouble like this video. Let me tell you, Felix has told me a lot about contract law. He's a smart dude. He knows a lot of crap. He really does. And he lights up my computer constantly with crap. So anyway, I'm going to share with you what I think contract law is, what I feel. Now see, I'm a Mormon. I'm bearing my testimony. I believe this is true, and the Holy Ghost is helping me help you. I'm not an attorney. Don't send me money. Don't say, I'm not going to put a JD after my title here. Now, somebody wanted to know my ideas on contract law, and I find contract law one of the most interesting. I enjoy family law the best because I needed it constantly, getting divorced and getting custody of my kids. But contract law, to me, dates back historically, way back, as far as we know. As far as we know, clear back anytime man has been doing business with each other. Now, one thing I've learned about the law is that there's no such thing as the law. There are some general principles that societies and American society try to live by. There's no such thing as the law. Now, I know the Mormons fall off their chair when they hear that, because you're either in the church or you're out. You're going to the celestial kingdom or you're going into outer darkness. Joseph Smith was a prophet or he wasn't a prophet. I mean, there's no middle ground for Mormons, and that's typical of a cult. And that's why many Mormons don't watch me. And I'm glad for that. I mean, really, I have some reasonable hits. I'm coming up on 260,000 in 182 countries. And a lot of the Mormons don't say shit, because what I'm saying is the truth. All they can say is, you're fat, you're ugly, your voice is grindy, your ears wiggle. They never talk to the subject matter. But anyway, that gives them Jesus points. And God knows they need Jesus points. So here we go with contract, what David thinks historically contract law is about. Now, I like contract law because its foundation is fair. Fair. You are not to take advantage of anybody else with contract law. And to me, it's one of the more clear legal doctrines of mankind. and it's enforced reasonably fair. Reasonably fair. Now, when you get into fraud and when you get into criminal law and all kinds of things, you have people cutting people's heads off and getting 4 days in jail, and off they go. Contract law, to me, is different. The basis of the law is that one side, it can be a group or it can be individual, and I'm going to speak as individual. An individual has an idea, and he wants another, or she wants another individual to cooperate so that the original person and the cooperating person benefit. There has to be a mutual benefit in contract law. You can't have one person wanting to do something and the other person says okay and the other person gets 0. That contract is going to be knocked down by most judges, in my humble opinion. So, if you say to a person, I see that you have a very, very nice gold mine and is producing wonderful profit in gold right now, would you like to get into a contract with me? And the other person says, well, what are you going to give me for the gold mine? And the first person is a Mormon, and they say, nothing. You're just going to sign that I can have your mine. No remuneration. And the gold mine owner, if they're, you know, a single-digit IQ, they go, okay, and they sign it over, and if no one challenges it, it's going to go through. Now, that's what people many times don't understand about the law, is that there's a lot of people, Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, Mormon schemes, that if no one complains, then there's not going to be justice. There's not going to be a higher authority. Now, this is not the prophet of the church, okay? The Mormons have their own court system, and down here in Australia, we call it a kangaroo court, and they call that a kangaroo court up in Utah, too. So, a contract has to be an equal and fair agreement between two people. Now, let's say that the gold mine owner is not making any money off of the gold mine, and the other Mormon comes in, the scammer, and he says, I'd like to buy your gold mine, and it's basically worthless. Now, the Mormon has had a geological study that shows there's a huge vein of gold a ½ an inch under where they've dug. So the innocent person, the 93-year-old lady that's selling the damn mine, and the Mormons are buying it. Now, there has to be, in contract law, and I have so many brilliant people that watch this. I'm just amazed at how educated some of you really know your shit. You really do. I'm just, you know, bullshitting, and you come back and go, no, in Nevada, they can get your wife's assets. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. There has to be what's called consideration, and that's a fancy word for money. It can be other things. It can be cattle, but there has to be something of value that is exchanged in a contract. And so my original saying that we'd like to contract and buy your mine, and we're going to pay you nothing, is not a contract. But if you say we're going to pay you a penny, and the old lady goes, that's a good deal. That's the widow's mite. And I know the Lord would not send you over here, Bishop, to buy my mine if it wasn't fair. So she sells the mine for a penny. So there's consideration, and there's an agreement between two human beings. Now you have a contract. Now that contract is in force. That contract is in force. What happens now is that the bishop has the mine, and he digs a little deeper, and he becomes billions and billions and billions of gold dollars fall out of the mine. Now, the 93 or 6-year-old lady is now 99, and she's going to the bishop, to the storehouse, to get a can of meat and some milk. And the bishop, the bishops will go, we'll give it to you, but you got to work. We don't like the evils of the dole. That's what they say in the Mormon church. If you get food from them, you have to work for it. Well, so the 99-year-old lady is now vacuuming the chapel and cleaning the toilet so that she can have $2.80 worth of food a week. So her mine didn't pan out. Well, it panned out for the Mormons. And then they got billions and billions. Now, here is the trick. And I love contract law. Her son, he goes, Grandma. Or, no, he goes, Mom. Now, he's 78. And he says, Mom, I think you got ripped off. And she goes, well, the bishop seemed honest about it, and I felt good in my heart. I didn't know that gold was in there. And the son said, well, damn, the bishop knew it. He'd done it. You let him do a geological study, and he never told you the results of that study. He has superior knowledge. She goes, well, I still wear my garments at 99 now. Haven't changed them in 38 years because I'm too weak to put all that underwear on. But what do you think, son? And the son says, hell, it's not a legal contract. So they go back to the bishop and they say, we're suing your ass. This contract was not based upon equal knowledge. You took advantage of information that should have been shared, and you had the intent to defraud my mom. And so most judges in contract law would agree with the son and say you did have superior knowledge and superior information, and a 98-year-old lady selling it for a penny, we are reversing your contract. It's what they call null and void. Now, it can get trickier. It can get, and I'm not an attorney. Don't send me money. Don't. I'm just giving you historical knowledge that I have that I think is right. And I'm sure I'm going to have 9 attorneys write to me and go, you're full of shit. They're all going to be Mormon attorneys. And they will say, you know, contract law is enforced by the Danites. We will cut your throat or we will cut your guts out if you don't agree with us. Now, contract law can get more complex. First of all, there has to be a meeting of the minds, and that means pretty much fair. Pretty much fair. Now, if the bishop didn't know that the gold was under there, and the grandma really wanted to sell the mine, and a reasonable price for the mine was, you know, $100,000, and the bishop paid $100,000 for it, he didn't do anything. He didn't defraud anybody. He took a chance that there might be gold in there, and she took a chance that she wanted the $100,000. That's a pretty fair contract right there. Now, here's some of the things that can arise in a contract situation, and that is this. Let's say that, see if I can hold the same analogy. Let's say that the bishop came to a reasonable agreement. That's hard to imagine. Mormons and money, they're like cockroaches with money. And if you've got it, they're going to get it. So let's say this happens to be an unusual bishop. And he decides he wants to buy the gold mine for the corporation. And he decides to pay $100,000 for it, and Grandma agrees. They write it down, and usually you can have a verbal contract, but boy, they're a can of worms. They're a can of worms. But if you write it down, then you memorialize it by signing. Now you've got a contract. Now, here's what's fun with contract law. Let's say the bishop, who has superior knowledge and intelligence over a 97-year-old lady, he writes the contract. And in the contract, he writes that it's a $100,000 payment to the old lady. And he writes the words, we agree that I will give you $100,000 of remuneration. He doesn't use the word money. He says remuneration. So they sign it, and Grandma thinks she's going to get a check in the mail from the Mormon church. Jesus. The Mormon church never gives money. They take money. They never give money. So they sign the contract and whatever. Okay, the bishop moves all of his mining equipment over onto her mine. Well, let's say that she sold all the equipment with it. Okay. And Grandma's sitting home, and the bishop says, we will pay you. And that's usually what the Mormon church says when they intend to just rip you a new asshole. So they do. They rip Grandma a new asshole. And so they give Grandma 20 million chickens. Grandma goes, well, you know, I thought you were going to pay me $100,000. And the bishop goes, no, the contract says remuneration. So they give her chickens. Now, she has to pay for all these chickens to have feed and food, and 18 million boys out there, priesthood holders, putting fences up and whatever. Now, her 78-year-old son comes over to visit his mother, and he goes, Mom, jeez, what are you doing with the chickens? And he said, well, son, I got remuneration from the Mormon church and the bishop for the gold mine. And he says, did you agree to take chickens? And she said, well, I thought it was going to be money, but the bishop is an honest man, and he would never cheat me. I can hardly sit in my chair when I say that. So anyway, the son says, Mom, I think you got ripped off. She says, well, I've eaten about 700 of those chickens, but I can't eat the other 20 million. I think you're right, son. So the son sues the bishop. Okay, now, when that goes into a court of law, the argument, positive and negative, there's always two sides to every story. And until you hear both sides, you don't know shit. You've got to hear both sides to make any kind of a decision or judgment. So the judge will say, well, where is the contract? And the bishop produces it. And it looks like a perfectly good contract. It's signed, it's dated, and it's written down that she will receive remuneration. And the old lady will testify from her hospital bed with the wires in her ears and her nose. And she's already going to leave the gold mine to the Mormon church, but she sold it early because they couldn't wait for the money. They're poor. They needed more money. So she's testifying, Your Honor, I thought remuneration was money. And then the counsel will turn to the bishop and say, well, you didn't say money. And, of course, the bishop's attorney, which the church has the best attorneys in the world. I'm telling you, you don't want to come up against the Mormon church unless you got a case that is out of this world. They have the best attorneys, and they will kick your ass or slit your throat if they lose you. Either way, you're not going to do well. So the opposing counsel and the regular counsel for the 99 or 90 year, I keep changing their age because I can't remember, will say a reasonable person would have considered remuneration money. There is ambiguity in the contract. It's not clear. Grandma thought she was getting cash, and the bishop, I guess, intended to give chickens. So there was no meeting of the minds. There's no meeting of the minds. Now, here's what's neat about contract law that I remember, and I'm not an attorney, don't send any money here, and don't count on what I'm saying, and then sue me when you get in a contract situation and go, the bard was wrong. The bard is always wrong, so don't, this is entertainment, this is not law school, okay? And I do parody, so this might be an entire parody. If a contract has wording or information that is ambiguous, not clear, that people don't have a meeting of the minds, the contract becomes null and void because the responsibility of ambiguity goes to the writer of the contract, the bishop. He wrote the contract and it wasn't clear. It's his fault. Now, Grandma may have some room for some damages. She has 20 million chickens, and she had to put up fences, and she's been feeding them, and she's out, $15,000. So the judge may order court costs for her 78-year-old son, and money for her for having to build the fences and whatever. So the bishop wrote a contract that is ambiguous. Ambiguous, and I can't even say the word again. Ambiguity is in the contract, and so it falls, and the old lady is restored her gold mine, and the gold that he mined out of her mine is the old lady's. That connects, because if it had been a fair contract, then the bishop would have the right to all that gold. But because it had ambiguity in the contract, there was no contract. He didn't steal the gold, but he took it. He has to replace that back to Grandma. Now, there's other things that make contract law so interesting, let's say Grandma builds a pipeline out of her gold mine, and it goes underneath 4 or 5 other people's property, and then finally out into the parking lot of the Mormon church. Hopefully it'll be a sewer line, because they won't notice any additional sewer, and the shit that they put out, it'll just mix in. Well, let's say that one of the houses the line went under was a non-member, and 2 of the others over the pipeline houses are members. Now, let's say that the non-member person said verbally to Grandma, I don't care, you can put a pipeline under my house if it helps you get the shit over to the Mormon church. I want them to have more shit over there, so go ahead and do it. Well, now, the property changes hands, and the person who buys the property doesn't know that the shit line from Grandma's mine is under his property. So one day he's out mowing the lawn, like, what was his name, Jeb, in the Beverly Hillbillies, and he decides to put a for sale sign on his lawn, and he jams the sign down into the ground, and he breaks the sewer line, and here the shit all comes up in the air on him and on his property. Now, I love contract law because it becomes, there's no real law. There's just what the judge thinks is fair, and every judge is different. Now, let's say you have a Mormon judge in Utah, and Moscow, Australia is where I live down here. You have a Mormon judge. Now, here's some of the things that enter into that idea. Okay, first of all, the first owner of the property that sold it should have disclosed there's a huge shit line under this property, and don't dig down, or you may break it, or you may want a deal on the price of the property because you're taking a chance that the line may break. So there has to be disclosure in contract law, and he didn't disclose. He sold the property for full value, knowing the shit line was under the property. Well, the new owner, he bought it not knowing it was there. So that's not a real sale of contract law. Now, interesting to me that real estate transfer always has to be in writing. Maybe in your state it doesn't, but my understanding is that anytime you sell real property, a house or land, it has to be in writing so that the terms are understood. Well, this was in writing, but the first man did not disclose the shit line. Okay, so now the shit line backs up, and now the BM is 4 feet high on this new man's lawn and house. his washing machine, his kitchen sink, his bathroom, and his basement, and the kid's trampoline is all under shit. Now, he can't sell the house like that. And he's lost all that property, and in the drywall will pick up the smell, and the carpets, and the couch. You don't want to sit on the couch because you'll be up to your neck in shit. So now this guy is out, whatever. Let's just use numbers, $100,000 of cleanup and fixing the pipeline. Now many things come up here. It's fun because it's so complex. First of all, the sale of the property was not legal. So a judge may order that sale to be null and void, and ask that the first person that lied and didn't disclose pays for all the damage. That's a possibility for what they call redress, or for equity and fairness. So now let's say that the guy that bought the house knew there was gold underneath his house. But now there's 4 feet of shit on top of the gold. Now, he's not sure he wants to give the house back. But the first guy, the judge says, well, you have to give the house back. So they get together, and they say, well, let's create a stipulation. I'll tell you what. If you clean up the damn mess that your lie caused, we'll let the sale go through. So they make a contract outside of the sale of the house contract, because the second guy knows there's a gold mine down below, but the first guy doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. So that's a possibility, that they could come up with a side contract, and the first guy comes in, plugs the shit line, and then cleans up all the BM all over this guy's property, and then the guy mines his home and finds in the basement billions of dollars worth of gold. Now, you can twist and turn these, and it's so fun. And bipolar people, we love this. We're natural-born attorneys. And so now, the new homeowner goes over to the 97-year-old lady who's dumping her shit under his house into the Mormon parking lot. Now, he says to the 97-year-old lady, you can't pour shit through there anymore. I'm going to tear up that pipeline and plug it onto your property and plug it on the other side of my property. You can't do that. Now, she may come up with a contract and say, well, the bishop said it was okay. When all the Mormons were living there, they let me do that. The guy said, well, you know, I'm a friend of the Bard, the atheist, and I don't want your shit under my house. And then she goes, well, what if I pay you $1 million a day from my gold mine to let this shit go through the pipe? Here's another contract. Here's another contract. He can make money stopping that pipe and pressuring the lady to give him money. And so he may go, hey, you know, I got enough gold. No. And now she can go to the judge and say, listen, that pipeline has been in there since Brigham Young. And he should have known. If he had done a property search on that, what do they call it, a title search or a deed, if he looked at that, a plat, it would have shown the pipeline. So he was negligent in buying the land that way. So now it becomes more complicated and more fun, and everybody can argue and do this. Now let me close with the funnest thing I find in the law. In Utah, we have an HOV lane. California, it's a diamond lane, and other states, their fast lane is restricted to 2 or more people in the car. And if you have 2 or more people in the car, hey, you can get out there and go like hell. Now, here's the simple thing, okay? If a woman is driving and she's pregnant, she has another human being in her stomach, can she use the HOV lane? I love to argue these things. That's why I like law school. I quit because I realized there's no such thing as the law. Whoever can argue it the best, and if your dad is the judge, the law means nothing. Nothing. You got to wear garments in Utah and Quaker hats in Pennsylvania. But I love the principle of the law. So, can she drive in the fast lane, in the HOV lane, the restricted lane, with a baby in her stomach? Well, I used to play with my attorney friends And they finally kicked me out of the group because I'm not an attorney. That's why they kicked me out of the group. Don't pay me money. Don't count on any of these things that I'm saying to you. Go look it up yourself or go hire a real attorney. So I argued, if she's pregnant, can she ride in the HOV lane? Well, some people will say, yes, that's in fact, most of you creationists will go, she can. That's a real human being in there. Well, let's say that she got pregnant last night, and she doesn't know she's pregnant, and she's driving along 80 miles an hour, and the police pull her over and say, where's the other person? And she says, well, I got pregnant last night. Now, see, many times in the law, there is some common sense, but sometimes, well, most of the time, there's no common sense. So anyway, she gets a ticket because she's only pregnant one day. Well, if the Utah Highway Patrol pulls her over, he'll not only feel her up, maybe steal her money or whatever, but if she's really pregnant, he might go, hey, I'm a Mormon, and after I take total advantage of you, I'm not going to give you a ticket because I can see there's a baby there. It doesn't look like a pillow. Now, here's what's interesting, okay? When does a person become a person under the law? Not common sense, but under the law. Well, most of the time, and I know there's going to be a lot of you that know more about this than I do, and you're going to write in and let me know. I don't know shit. When the baby's head is born, it is now a human being. The rest of the body doesn't have to be there. But once the head is out of the mother, it is a human being. So if she's driving the HOA lane, and the baby's head is hanging out and she's on the way to the hospital, she's within her rights to be using that lane. Now, here's other arguments that I am fascinated with, and that is, what if you're driving a hearse and there's a dead body behind you? I don't think the HOV law has taken into consideration, and it won't until someone stupid like me challenges it when the police stop me and go, you don't have a second person. I said, hell I do. He's right there in the box. Well, that's not a human being. He's not alive. I said, well, does he have to be alive to be a human? See? See how you can argue that? And it's fun. It's fun. So anyway, the HOV lane is a fascinating thing of what are human beings, and when they're dead, can you drive in there with a dead human being? Now, let's do one more. This one I love too, and that's a buffet, and they have a big sign out front, and it says all you can eat. All you can. That's all the sign says, is all that you can eat. So 80 Tongans get off of the BYU bus. They go in to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Now, these big boys, they can eat an elephant, and they often do. So they all go in, and they get all the food that they want, and 79 of them leave the restaurant, okay? But one guy stays there. And he's, what's the word? Is it no, not dyslexic. That's your eyes. He has an eating disorder. And he goes into the bathroom, and he throws up all of the buffet food. And he comes out, and he eats again. Now, he's never left the restaurant. And the owner is looking at this, and the owner is seeing that the profit for the day, who is going to be Monson, but the physical profit of money for the day is going down the poop chute. Now, can he go to the Tongan and say, you can't keep throwing up and coming back and eating? You can't do that. And the Tongan says, no, my attorney sitting right here, Mac the Midget, says that I can. He hates the Mormons, and you're a Mormon buffet, and I'm going to eat you out of house and home. It says all you can eat, and I'm not done eating. Fascinating to me. It's a fascinating argument legally. It's a fascinating argument, and all the other guys are out on the bus cheering him. And pretty soon the building starts to collapse. He's eating the doors. He's eating the windows. And it's all you can eat. Can you eat the tables? Can you eat the secretaries and the waitresses? I don't know how the law would see that. And in every state, attorneys are going to see it different. And in every state, the judges are going to see it different. And in every state, the rules of the law are going to be different. Now here's, I said that was the last one, but you know me, I lie like a rug. Utah is the only state that I know that their anti-discrimination law says you can't discriminate anyway, which is typical now of all states. But Utah has one exception: race. If they don't like your race, they can discriminate against you, and that's churches, not restaurants and business. But the Mormon Church wrote the law in Utah, and they hated blacks, and they still hate blacks. The Romney loss is the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to the Mormon Church. And they said if you have a church, you're in a different status rather than private companies, and you can discriminate legally against blacks. You know, how long that's going to stand up, I don't know. It's like polygamy. You can make arguments on both sides of it. Most of the world is polygamous. The Muslims and many other groups are polygamous, but the United States isn't. So anyway, the law is fun. I look at it now as recreation, and I know that, like I said, many of you will write in and say you're full of shit, you don't know this about contract law and that, and I'm sure I forgot some of it. So when you say I know nothing, I'll just say I forgot. Or I didn't know that. Your state's a little bit different. But contract law has to be fair. Each person on the side of the contract needs to have a meeting of the minds. They really want what the other person is willing to give up. And you can't take advantage of people who are senile like me, old like me, retarded. You know, it's hard to make a contract with anyone retarded. Anyone under 18 years old, they're not responsible. So if you get in a contract with a 14-year-old girl like Joseph Smith does, that's a null and void contract. But you know, once he's had her in bed 8 or 10 times, it doesn't matter. It's null and void. He goes, well, I'm sorry, ambiguity. You're under 18. So anyway, the Mormons use all of the cracks and all of the craters of the law, and it doesn't even look like the law. Up here, not up here, no, in Utah. I'm down here in Australia. But I read up in Holiday, in Salt Lake area, they just voted that you can't open your stores on Sunday. That those, I think they're called blue laws, are still in effect up there. Now, people who have medical conditions or need diapers or bottles for babies or medication, you know, this could be challenged a million ways until someone like me goes, whoa, that ain't fair, and bring it up. That's going to stand. Laws stay unless somebody gets into a courtroom and high enough up where a judge goes, hey, you can have gay marriage. There's nothing in the Constitution that says, you know, you can't marry who you want to marry. You want to marry a tree? Marry a tree, or a bull, or a cow. We don't care. The marriage law allows that. So we'll see in the Supreme Court. So anyway, if you see this 99-year-old lady with 20 million chickens on her ranch, you'll know she's a Mormon. You'll know the bishop wrote the contract, and you'll know that the Mormon Church and their attorneys backed this bishop up right to the hilt. The old lady, she's going to die anyway. The church doesn't care. Thanks.